And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your sensei, your griot, your storyteller. And how are you doing today? So, what is a neoliberal, progressive, macho, lesbian? That's everybody. And here it is Monday, the 2nd. And I'm just staying in the deep green. It's a little disconcerting. The sky is pink and sunset, sunrise, it's blood red. It's interesting. But in reality, for all the wackiness that it seems to be, it's just the same as it ever was. Back in the 70s, I started traveling in 1966. I was at a prep school in New England called the Winchendon School for Boys. And Joe Kennedy was my roommate my sophomore year. And, pretty much everyone in that school, there were only 160 boys. And there were a handful of us that were uh, there because of, not that we could afford it, but we had, I had a cardinal for a godfather, and I got thrown out of a seminary. So he said, "Oh, he should go to this place. This will straighten him out. He'll make good contacts." And so I went to school with the boys who will be who are meant to be the leaders of the world, and this is what my group of fellow students did with the world. We're looking at it. And there were a handful like me who tried to, follow the path of people like Buddha and Jesus and Vishnu, who were about love and understanding and being part of the everything. So I kind of started traveling, thrown out of seminary, and I first had to go to if you're going to school, especially grammar school, high school, you should always go to just summer school because I you know took care of the requirement of my freshman year in 5 weeks, and you know um, I met a nice Irish Catholic girl who just loved to be a macho lesbian. And she was the first woman to tell me what a great lesbian I was. And my first wife told me what a great lesbian I was. Other women, my partner at the New York City Housing Authority Police, she was my partner because everybody else was scared of her. But she told me what a great lesbian I was, and many other women have told me this. So I am your neoliberal, progressive, macho lesbian, and that's what it is. So that summer, after I finished my freshman year in 5 weeks, or I think even less than about a month and a few days, and was ready to go on to my sophomore year in this other school. So I had, a good month and a half to screw around in New York. And I, my parents had a place out in Long Island, and so I went up there. And the girl who was my sweetie at the seminary, her father was on the board, and she had been going to that place since she was a little girl with her dad, and so she knew every corner in that place. And she showed up for this part, this cotillion kind of thing, and the freshman boys were to meet the girls at the bus in the afternoon and escort them to the sports, and that was like soccer and hockey and basketball, and I took her and I met her, and she said, "Boy, you're a cute little guy," and she goes, "You don't want to escort me to the to the hockey thing, it's called, and I know a really great place in your chapel." So he took me up there, and we she undressed me as a good lesbian would do, and we had fun, and then she dressed me back up, and she goes, "Show me where you are." So the freshman dorm, it was straight out of Harry Potter, and we didn't have our own rooms. We didn't have roommates. We had these carols, and e- every corner, there were four corners to each floor, and the carol had um, a common room, each there were four common rooms, and each common room had four carols, and each carol had like six guys, kind of living there, and we each had our little kind of niche, had semi privacy, but not really, and so the bunch of guys that I was with we were all the really do 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 Mission Impossible. We were the Mission Impossible force. So we tried to change that school, and we got our handed to us. And one kid nearly died. The rest of us got really. I got beat up. I tied to fire pipes and beat with 2x4s. Broke my ribs and my arm, and so I'm that girl. I took her back to my carol, and you know it's a common room, about 28 guys. I had my little corner over there, and she basically, again, repeated, the process. Undressed me, undressed herself, rubbed our uglies together, and she showed me what a good lesbian was, and my friends were like, so that was another thing to give me a little street cred, and then. Um, when I brought her where I was supposed to turn her over to her manly man, her varsity athlete, um, basically, we went there, and my friends who were like reincarnated black jazz musicians, but they were, nice white boys from Connecticut, but more, they looked like the Blues Brothers. They were the original Blues Brothers. They always wore black and sunglasses and playing blues. And so, that was supposed to be tea, and they were just playing music, but she got up and nobody else was dancing, and she was tonguing me and humping me my leg and like a dog, and then I was supposed to take her to. I mean, by that time she was supposed to be with the manly man, and he walked off in a huff, and then I was supposed to wait, but she said, no, no, he's going to sit with me. And, proceeded. So that whole night until I put her back on the bus, she was just showing me what a macho lesbian was. And that was another reason I kind of gotten. But she stayed my buddy for many years. And so that summer, I went back to my parents' place on Long Island after finishing my few weeks of my freshman year in summer school, and hanging with that Irish girl, her father being a doorman. Most Irish men in the 60s either were doormen for rich, fancy apartments on Park Avenue, or part of the Teamsters delivering beer. And so I had two really nice macho lesbian girlfriends that summer. And the summer before I was a freshman, I went to a summer school for super rich kids in Maine on a long lake. And there was a family there who, Mr. R, he was off in World War II and met this English lady who was really Irish, and she married him, and came back to America, and she was really smart, and so she whipped the family farm and business, and it was a prep school up there, and so they had the gas station, the general store, the post office, a little restaurant that the boys all, went and got their stuff from, and he had three daughters: older daughter, middle daughter, younger daughter. So I used to hang out at that place, and I fell in love with the older daughter, and she kind of thought I was cute and liked having a lapdog like me. And she, but then she had graduated nursing school, and she went off to Boston to be a nurse. So then the middle daughter kind of took up that role, and she went off to college, and really, she went up to Boulder, and then the youngest one is, it's like, Goldilocks, too hot, too cold, just right. And so Teresa, the youngest, was, and we had the sweetest, nicest romance, and she wasn't a macho lesbian, and so she, we just held hands and snuggled. We didn't even kiss; we just snuggled, and her parents thought it was so cute. And her father, said, "Well, if she's gonna screw around with any of those kind of guys, he's the one." So that after you know going to summer school in New York, and then going to my parents' place in Long Island, where Mr. Anderson was, and fooled around with my Connecticut macho lesbian girlfriend in the pool. We all, she stayed. She'd come and visit. I'd go to New York, pick her up at the train station, take her out to dinner, take her to a nightclub, um, go take her back to Long Island, and spend a day or two in the pool. And ride around on a tandem bicycle all over eastern Long Island, and she would be wearing a bikini and just riding that seat and playing with my ear. I'd be, and we'd stop off at different pools, and we'd be macho lesbians in the pool. I mean, it didn't matter, public pool, private pool. We would go, oh, look, there's a pool. And, this is 1966, and, you know, that's, or 65, actually. And you could do stuff, and people, it was like you were invisible, you know? You didn't represent a certain, you know, LGBTQ, MOUSE. Anyway, so the next year, after going to the school for the richest, most powerful boys on the planet, I went to school with the Shah of Iran's son. Like I said, Joe Kennedy was my roommate. That's Robert Kennedy's middle boy. And he used to complain, "Why'd you go to bed?" Because he'd want to masturbate. And he goes, and I'd always be reading. He goes, "Why are you reading so many books?" I said, "Well, it helps expand the mind, helps you to understand the world." He goes, "I don't have to. I'm a Kennedy." So, and he became, I think, a congressman. So, um, that summer I didn't get through out of that school. Almost did. I mean, the headmaster hated my guts because of the connects I had. I didn't really do anything bad. I just almost set his house on fire. And all I was doing was drying my sweater. And I thought I saved the day because the house kind of got smoky. We were downstairs watching Star Trek. I said, smoke. Went upstairs, and it had, set the room on fire. My sweater was burning on top of the lamp. The desk was kind of starting to catch fire. The bedding was caught fire, and I threw a chair out the window, and then I threw all of the burning stuff out the window. And my adrenaline was so strong, I didn't, get burnt. And I thought I saved the day. Smashed a big window out, and snow was coming in, and but the house didn't burn down. It smelled like smoke, like for the next 4 years. And that was the headmaster's house, and his wife was livid. So I was like, always being. So that summer, I came home, and it was, I was out there in Long Island, and there was no one's coming to visit. My macho lesbian girlfriends weren't around, and didn't have one. Myself early on, like early before 4th of July, I said, I'm not just waiting right here. I'm going to go do it. And so that fall, um, while I was at the prep school for the richest boys in the world, I basically um, we we didn't have a gym because the school had been an old country club for the very rich of a toy town. It was all the rich industrialists, belonged to this place. And it was a hotel, big fancy rooms. So as boys, we had big fancy rooms. There was only 160 of us. It had, 80 rooms, and so two guys to a thing, and they had some other houses around too that were, dorms. So um, we used to use the gym that was downtown and had a big Olympic pool with a 12-meter diving platform, and that's where really learned to swim with Coach Ray. And he was a nice Jewish boy. He was about 90 years old and won a gold medal at the 36 Olympics in Berlin. And his, nobody wanted to be his roommate except the black guy. And so the black guy and the Jew were there, and they were in the Olympic Village. And he dropped his fork. He leaned down. When he came up, there was a bullet hole in the wall next to where he was, um, right where his head would have been if he had dropped his fork. And so Jesse Owens, that's the black guy. And so that was my swimming coach. I mean, he overcame amazing things, and it taught me a great deal about myself. And I was a long distance swimmer, so I used to do pyramids: one fast, one slow, two fast, two, all the way up to 22, and then back down. That's all I did. Just swam, 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 swam. And once I could really do it, do the stroke and the breathing and the turning and not think about it, it took me out of my body, and I was meditating while swimming and not knowing, and going visiting other places. And the first time I did that, and all the boys left to go to showers, he came back out, and there I'm still swimming in the pool. Hey, he blew his whistle, didn't hear it. You know, he had to jump in the water and like, hey. And he goes, so you were meditating? You were in another place, weren't you? In the zone? I said, yeah. He says, well, you're now in the new club where all the cool guys go. So he became one of my first. I mean, at 9, I met Madame Overkluver, who is a shaman. I think it's hard to explain. Madame Kluver. She had a store. She had owned a building on Lexington Avenue in the 30s, and it was a very interesting store. It had it's plate glass. The whole front was plate glass window, but instead of being flat and like reflecting your thing, it was curved. It was the first window I ever saw like this, so there were no reflections. So it looked like you could just walk into that place, but you couldn't. And the door wouldn't open unless you were meant to go in that store. And there was a big, the whole back wall of the store was a mirror. And at certain points, you could walk through the mirror into a whole nother existence, another dimension. So yeah, I kind of had an exposure to that. And Grandpa Stahl took me to every kind of proto paranormal site in New York, in Manhattan. There were quite a few. And my new novel, um, our Legends anthology, number four, book number four. I'm starting out with book number four. I'm taking a lesson from George Lucas and the Greeks and Joseph Campbell. And so my new novel, and if you go to XRATTED, you will get a taste of my writings. And I think Google bought um, .blogspot.com because they changed all the protocols. Just like I can't seem to put a picture up of me. They constantly changed all the protocols. I don't care. Um, you know. So back to being at Winchington in the fall. So to go to the gym, um, it was a 5 mile walk down, a 5 mile walk back up, pretty steep hill. And in the fall, it wasn't bad. Winter, ooh, was windy and cold and icy, and so we used to jump on the freight train that went right by the ninth hole of our school and went down the hill into town and would slow down because it had to go back up a hill, and you could jump off. And it went by this platform that you could just step off and then walk about a block. So instead of walking 5 miles and then walk, and it just timed it perfectly. We had gym um, classes stopped at 10. From 10 to 11, we got to get downtown, um, and a train kind of rumbled through around 10:30. So if you could get your butt over that hill where you could just step on to a slow moving train, if the stock car or the what do I call it, you know, the big car that they put stuff in back in the day before containers. You could just step in. Now hobos they don't ride in the cars anymore; they ride underneath them, which is pretty harrowing. I tried that out, and it's like, oh baby. So anyway, we got good at doing that. We did it together, and we watched out for each other, and then at 12:30 when our gym was over, 12:45, we had lunch at 1:30. They expected us to run up the hill to get to lunch, so we we take the train up, and one day I was going downtown, just not for gym or anything, just I had some time, and I heard the train. I got over to the ninth hole, and the train came by. I stepped on. Train went down the hill, but instead of slowing down, it went faster and faster. And so by the time we got to the place where we normally stepped off, we were going too fast for that. So the train kept going until I got to Toronto. And then one of the train police found me and, called up the prep school. And I had been missing for a day and a half, like I disappeared. And the headmaster had to drive all the way to Toronto to come and get me. So he was upset. So that's why it was a little bit of a test. But so that summer, I didn't want to just spend it, with my parents in Long Island. So I decided I was going to hitchhike. I had experienced taking the train, being a hobo from Massachusetts to Toronto. So I decided, well, didn't die then. Well, I'm gonna hitchhike to Maine and go hang the poke there in Long Lake. So I, I had about 120 bucks that I had saved up because I had gotten a little job. At there was a whoop de doo because where I was either farmland or estates, like the Andersons say. And they had a country club, but it had no club, had no pool, no tennis courts, no dining hall, just country club. Because these guys had rich guys had big fancy mansions. So you know, I went and had a job there. That's really where I learned how to cook in a. Because they built a big fancy thing. They got a French chef, and they hired us, and I got had prep school. I left prep school. We got off for summer um, in May because we were there all the time. We never left. Got off for Christmas about 3 weeks, but we went to school every day, Sundays included. And so, you know, when you live in there, time mounts up. So we fit the requirements of the state of Massachusetts and New Hampshire because our school is like in both states. So anyway, we basically, well, I would get back in May, and I saw someone said, "Oh, they're starting a thing. Maybe get a job." Because I think I was about 15. I was working in New York still, but this summer I wasn't. So I went and worked for about a month. And this guy taught us. It's like going to Cordon Bleu. Like he taught us the right way to do everything. It was like military, right? And he made all this great food, but the people were such bourgeois. He'd make these pate swans, and people would just, instead of taking little bits out of the side and keeping the swan as a beautiful thing, first thing somebody would slice off the swan's head. So the guy kind of lost his mind, and after 3 or 4 weeks of feeding these people, so he made all the food. It was a dairy farm right next door, so he got all this cow shit and spunked it up, made it taste good, and then fed it to the people. And then he, was taken away in a straitjacket, and the staff and the oldest guy there was like 19, and I was 16, and so you know, or no, I was 15. No, so you're right, I was 15, and so we took over, and we just had a great time, and all the servers were these college girls. So we just after everyone left, we would party until one time we got so drunk and so out to hook, we were jumping the golf carts over the fence into the pool. Now, seeing who could get get the golf cart into the pool. That's how drunk we were. And so we all got fired. And that's when I kind of left. What am I going to do now? I said, I'm going to hitchhike to Maine and go see the folks at Long Lake. So I did. And, made it. I first, I basically hitchhiked into town, which was like, Garden City, no, Glen Cove, and took a train, Long Island Railroad to Penn Station. Right? And I took a Penn Station, from Penn Station I went to Maine, you know. I got to Boston, quite get to Maine. I got to Boston. Then I took a bus from, you know, Boston to Maine's capital, and then I was about 100 and something miles from where my final destination was, and I hitchhiked. And that was, we got 3 rides, got me there. And I got there around, it was full moon, not a cloud in the sky. You could walk and see really well. And the last 4 or 5 miles, I walked into town, and it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I knew they were all asleep, and their house was open. I could have walked in, but on the front porch, I laid down. I took a cushion off the thing outside and put it on the ground and fell asleep. And the door opened, the screen door opened, and whacked me in the head. And there was Mr. R. He goes, "Al, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I came to visit." He said, "Your parents know you're here." And I said, "I did left them a note." He said, "What did it say?" And the note said,